When we think about the biggest challenges facing the World Cup, our minds usually jump straight to rival teams, geopolitical tensions, or maybe even internal corruption, right? But the reality on the ground is shifting fast. In today's Explainer, we're diving into a threat that is completely redefining the world's most popular sport. Because, as we're going to see, the most formidable opponent on the pitch right now isn't actually wearing a jersey at all.
The invisible enemy threatening the future of football is quite simply heat. We are talking about extreme, relentless temperatures. Experts from all over the globe are now warning that the very future of the World Cup, and honestly, the sport itself, depends entirely on how it responds to a rapidly warming planet. This isn't just some distant theoretical issue anymore. It's happening right now, on the pitch, under the floodlights.
Section 1. The invisible opponent. When the game heats up.
At first, heat just kind of seemed like a minor issue, maybe a sluggish match here or there. But recently, we've seen a perfect storm of climate-related impacts. We aren't just talking about a warm, sunny afternoon. We are seeing record-breaking temperatures during live matches. And this translates directly to severe heat exhaustion for elite athletes who are pushing their bodies to the absolute limit for 90 minutes. Add to that the severe hydration challenges on the pitch, where players literally cannot replace fluids fast enough, and the growing safety risks for tens of thousands of fans packed tightly into sweltering stadiums. The headlines have literally started to shift from who won or lost to who survived the heat.
But here's the thing. While the sweating and the exhaustion were super obvious to the fans in the stands, the real danger wasn't entirely visible yet. We really have to ask, what was actually happening inside the athletes' bodies? While what happened next completely alarmed sports scientists, leading us directly into the stark biological realities of playing the beautiful game in extreme conditions.
Section 2. Warning signs on pitch. The biological toll of extreme heat.
When we step away from the tactics and look purely at human biology, the physical toll of these extreme microclimates is pretty terrifying. First, you have rapid fluid loss. A player can sweat out liters of water, creating this severe hydration deficit that they physically cannot drink fast enough to fix during play. Second, because they're so dehydrated, their bodies basically lose the ability to cool down. This leads to dangerous spikes in core temperatures. You are essentially inducing a high fever while sprinting. And finally, step 3 is the inevitable consequence, clinical heat exhaustion, leading to a massive, measurable drop in athletic performance, cognitive decision-making, and physical safety.
And this wasn't just some subjective feeling among the players. As medical staff warned, quote, "The numbers were shocking. Player safety was becoming an unprecedented challenge." Medical experts and scientific warnings made it totally impossible to ignore the severe risks athletes were taking just by stepping onto the pitch. The clinical data showed, plain and simple, that human biology wasn't designed to maintain this level of exertion in such extreme environments.
Think about how the game has actually been forced to adapt over time. For decades, past tournaments featured standard, uninterrupted 45-minute halves. The whistle blew, and you played. But as the heat intensified, we saw the mandatory introduction of cooling breaks. This was a totally new mid-match adaptation, where referees had to halt the game purely for medical safety. But the timeline definitely doesn't stop there. It points directly toward future World Cups, which face sharply escalating climate projections.
Which brings up a really pressing question. If the sport is already relying on emergency cooling breaks just to survive a standard match today, what does the biological limit look like tomorrow? Well, the long-term data revealed something even more disturbing.
Section 3. The alarming data. Record-breaking temperatures.
40 degrees Celsius, that's over 104 degrees Fahrenheit. This number represents the new extreme baseline recorded during modern football matches. At these temperatures, the human body is pushed to the absolute brink. It is no longer a game of skill, right? It just becomes a dangerous test of sheer physiological survival.
The climate projections show a stark, unavoidable upward trend for future events. When you compare historical average match temperatures with the projected future tournament temperatures, the gap is just alarming. We are moving away from historical anomalies into a brand new baseline of extreme heat. Statistically speaking, the days of predictably mild summer tournaments are just disappearing.
And the implications of that heat are absolutely massive globally. A staggering portion of traditional host nations, countries that have historically lived and breathed football, now sit squarely in extreme heat risk zones during those traditional summer months. The map of climately safe zones is shrinking rapidly.
So, we're faced with this incredible dilemma. How can the sport possibly adapt to a world that is literally becoming too hot to play in?
Nobody expected what happened next, as host nations, absolutely determined to keep the beautiful game alive in their countries, turned to extreme, unprecedented technology.
Section 4. Engineering the beautiful game. Stadium adaptations and FIFA's response.
To protect athletes and fans, billions of dollars have been spent on incredible technological adaptations. We are talking about massive, extremely energy-intensive stadium cooling systems that are essentially trying to air condition the outdoors, which is just as wildly expensive as it sounds. We've even seen aerial stadium modifications designed specifically to manipulate wind and airflow to push heat away from the pitch. And behind the scenes, advanced thermal cameras are scanning crowds, actively looking for fans whose body temperatures are spiking dangerously high. It's a monumental feat of engineering.
But, and this is a big but, despite these incredible multi-billion-dollar adaptations, the long-term scientific consensus is that this is only a temporary fix. You can cool a stadium, sure, but you cannot air condition an entire country, all the training camps, or the vast fan zones. Experts warn that engineering alone simply cannot outpace the broader global climate projections.
So what happens when the technology reaches its limit? When we literally can no longer build bigger air conditioners to solve the problem, how will the tournament actually survive? And this is where things became impossible to ignore, leading to our final paradigm-shifting reveal.
Section 5. The final reveal. The permanent transformation of football. The data, the biology, and the sheer heat are forcing a fundamental transformation of the sport. We are basically leaving behind the old World Cup, the one with traditional summer scheduling and a truly global pool of potential host nations. We're now entering the era of the future World Cup. This is defined by forced schedule shifts to winter months that disrupt domestic leagues worldwide, and it's all restricted to a highly limited pool of climatically safe hosts. The map of who can host is being permanently redrawn by the climate.
Let's be totally clear about what this actually means. This is a permanent transformation, a fundamental, unavoidable restructuring of when, where, and how the sport is played globally due to climate pressures. We are no longer just looking at brief mid-match cooling breaks or putting a little shade over a stadium. We're looking at a completely different blueprint for the future of football. The very DNA of tournament scheduling and hosting is changing right before our eyes.
Which leaves us with this final, really profound thought to consider. If the world's most popular sport is already scrambling, literally forced to move its states and limit its locations just to survive today, what happens to the beautiful game when temperatures rise even further? If you found this explainer eye-opening and want to keep understanding the hidden forces shaping our world, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for learning with me today.